Hiya Stuart, lovely to meet up with you at the range and begin doing some work on your game. Just a quick recap as promised, so that when you're away in warmer climes you can get some work done in a constructive manner on your swing. So the things that we discussed during your session, first of all, set up. What I'd like to see you have is just a little bit more flex in the hips than we see here. See the hips quite level. That tends to promote a slightly more level turning of the shoulders, where we want a little bit more inclination to the ground. In order to achieve this, just lower the handle of the club a fraction. You can see there that Charlie Wee's club, if we do a line up from it, hits him just below the level of the belt. With yourself, it's hitting you just above the level of the belt. So the handle location as a baseline would point at the belt buckle. Depending on the type of shot you're experiencing, you need to consider where that handle is. You're pushing and overdrawing things. Your initial feeling was that you were coming over the top of it, and as we showed you on Flight Scope, that couldn't be further from the truth. You're definitely not coming over the top of a golf ball. So handle lower will help take a little bit of draw spin off it, as will hinging the hips downwards, a little bit more flexing the hips, a little bit more at setup, as we see with Charlie Wee. So I'll just leave that up there on the top left and bottom left as a reference. We then discussed ball position, and we related it to 0 point. Now again, depending on what you're trying to achieve will depend on what changes you make with your ball position. As a baseline, what we're going to see, or what we'd like to see, is the ball position 2 to 3 balls, maybe 2 balls back of that left shoulder. That in turn will give us a downward angle of attack, and as a result an outward path on the golf ball. So remember, whenever we hit down, we hit out. We went through that on the range using the canes, and we discussed it using Flight Scope. So a downward hit will produce more of an outward force. Now what I see here is a guy who is overdrawing all his golf shots, and if we look at the initial ball position that we have, first of all we've got quite strong grip, which is going to produce a squarer club face, and then what we've got is we've got a ball that's too far back. So now we've got too much descent and too much outward force, and we've got a square club face and a path that is too much in to out. We're going to get a lot of hooks. So the changes that we're going to make, softening up of the grip is essentially, you can see here, even when you're trying to do it, that left hand grip gets a little bit too strong. So that's something that you need to just play around with. We've got a cane in the ground just out in front of you when you practice, and that's to try and encourage you to just start the ball slightly right and allowing you to present the club face slightly open. And then the change we've made now is we've moved the ball up in the stance. Now the feeling here was that you were moving it as close to your left shoulder as possible. We had Sheila observing at the front of you, and you can see that the ball now is a little bit less back in the stance, producing a little bit less downward hit and a little bit less outward force. So hitting down on it less, taking the path and moving the swing less to the right, taking a little bit of draw off the golf ball. So if you're out there and you're hitting pushes and overdraws, consider what the grip's like. Is it too strong? Consider the ball position. Is it too far back? If it's too far back, it's going to shift the swing to the right. Too much descent, producing too much of an into-out path. You're going to hook and push a lot of shots. So use the left shoulder as a reference point. It's a piece of the pattern that we use to either increase draw or decrease the amount of draw we're getting on any given day. As a benchmark, we want to be trying to play most of your mid-irons. Let's get rid of those lines. Play the mid-irons from opposite the badge, as we see here. Play the driver opposite the left shoulder, and play the shorter stuff from opposite the centre of the stance, the sternum. Use the upper body as a reference rather than the lower body. Hope that helps. Hope it's a nice reference for you. Hope you enjoy your trip to America, and look forward to working with you upon your return. Well done.